everyone, welcome to Speak Infinite. This is Indumati here, and I'll be giving you a quick walkthrough on this demo on how to score 10 plus bands in your next CELPIP exam. So, in this particular demo, we'll be checking out the strategies on how to increase your band from probably 6, 7, or 8, or even 9 to a band of 10, 11, or even 12. Let us get started. So when it comes to self-help writing, you know that there's going to be two tasks. Task 1 is going to be about writing emails and task 2 would be responding to surveys. So there are a couple of strategies that are involved in increasing your bands to a band 7 or 8 to a band 10, 11 and 12. This is done by a few strategies and we'll be discussing the strategies here. I want to let you know that these strategies are quite unique and exquisite for us, and I would like you to take a pen and paper to note down all the important points you can find in this particular demo and make the best use of it. So, moving ahead, let us see how the CELPIP scores are being evaluated. So, when it comes to the evaluation part, the first thing the evaluators check is the coherence and cohesion. So, they check on how well you can organize your ideas in a very specific and clear way. This can be done by using good connectors. And one more important factor when it comes to organizing ideas is how well you can actually put your ideas in a paragraph. For example, in an email, if there are three pointers given, there are a lot of students who write in a very clumsy way of having the introduction, main body, and one conclusion. So this will not be sufficient for you to get a band 10 plus. What they expect is to make sure that each and every point in your question is divided into each and every paragraph, right? So totally there'll be five paragraphs, one for introduction, one for the first point, the third one for the second point, and the fourth one for the third point. And the final fifth paragraph would be allocated for conclusion. So this is one clear example of how well they want you to structure it when it comes to writing. If you consider the survey, they would expect an introduction and a conclusion and a body. So if you fail to write the introduction and conclusion, definitely your coherence and cohesion is lacking. So these important strategies are needed to be kept in your mind before you start your writing. Another important factor is to focus on the grammar and vocabulary. You have to check on how well the particular word fixes in that particular sentence or fits in that particular sentence, and you also have to focus on the variety. There shouldn't be any sort of repetition in your words. For example, if you are talking about a hotel's cleanliness in a particular email, you shouldn't use the word clean and tidy in many places. It should be occurring only once. So for you have to use the synonym for clean and tidy in the forthcoming paragraphs. You shouldn't repeat the same word again and again. So that is what they mean by variety and the accuracy of the words. So what do they mean by accuracy? For example, if they ask you to if like there are a lot of students who struggle in finding the correct vocabulary for the correct place, right? So you have to check the fit for the particular area. For example, if I say something like, um, I hope your family is doing well, right? So this particular word well is a good fit in the area of the introductory part of an informal email. But you cannot use something like, I hope your family is doing exquisite, right? That is not the accurate synonym or that is not the right fit for the particular place. So we have to be very careful about where you're placing your words. The next thing is the readability and the tone. So the sentence structure should be very well designed. For example, it you should have a variety of sentence structure to show how well you have the access for the language. So you have to establish or make the particular evaluator know that You are very well versed in the particular language, right? You shouldn't lack in any ways with regards to grammar and readability, especially in showing all the simple, compound, and complex structures you can frame. So this is quite mandatory when you're doing your CELPIP exam. It should be a combination of simple, compound, as well as complex, and it should have the correct punctuations, and the tone should also be matching to the context. You shouldn't use formal tone in an informal email, and you shouldn't use an informal tone in a formal email, right? So this tone plays a very vital role in your self-help writing. For example, if I lack my tone, right? If I lack my tone, if I write something like I'm extremely apologetic for what happened. If you write something like this, which is formal to your friend, right? You will definitely lose a band of at least one, right? So we have to be very careful about the tone you are projecting onto your writing. The next important factor is task fulfillment. So what do they mean by task fulfillment? In an email, there are going to be at least three pointers. You have to make sure that you're addressing all these points promptly, right? So the first point, second point, third point, let's imagine these three pointers are there, right? For instance, if you fail to address the second point and directly jump to the third point. Or if you just partially address the second point, you will definitely lose your band. Your dream of getting a band 9 is absolutely gone if you do not fulfill this particular task. So read the question very carefully, split them up, okay? Split whatever main ideas you need to convey, jot them down in your paper before you start writing your test, and then go for the typing part in your exam, right? So make sure you plan accordingly and fulfill all the tasks that are present on the screen, okay? Now let us go to an important factor. So a lot of students ask me, how do I actually change my band from 8 or 9 to a band of 10 plus or 11 plus? So how do I do this? What are the things that I need to do to get this band? Okay, this is a quite frequently asked questions. So there are just a few focus areas that you need to concentrate to achieve this. Okay, so when it comes to focus areas, the first thing you have to note down is the tone. Okay, so the tone, as I said before, the tone should be appropriate. For example, if you are writing a formal email, you should use a formal connector like furthermore, nonetheless, right? If you are doing an informal email, you should use a an informal connector like what's more in addition to this, right? So we need to be very careful about our tone. And again, when it comes to the sentence structure, we have to show the instructor, or we have to show the evaluator that you are capable of framing complex sentences. Another important criteria on how to easily increase your band, this is one of the easiest way to increase your band, and that is including the adjectives and adverbs. So this adjective adverbs combo is definitely going to be a key factor in improving your quality of writing, especially the vocabulary. What could be the reason for this? This is mainly because whenever the evaluator is evaluating your writing, he would try to understand all the descriptive words you're trying to say, right? So it could be something like extraordinarily intelligent, right? So extraordinarily intelligent. There is a ly word which is an adverb. Intelligent is an adjective, right? So all these are going to increase your quality of vocabulary, right? So that is the reason why there should be a main focus on adding adjectives and adverbs and their combos in your writing. Higher order vocabulary. So what do I mean by this? The quality of words you're choosing should be of higher order. For example, if you have to write the word good, instead of good, you can write excellent. All right. If you feel if you feel like you have to write the word important, you can replace that word by crucial. So you have to be very careful about the choice of words you're writing in your particular task 1 as well as task 2. Punctuation usage. Punctuation usage is often overlooked by a lot of students. Let me tell you the main reason for this. They feel like punctuation is not a major part of CELPIP and they kind of ignore it. But let me tell you something. Majority of the 9 plus or 10 plus band holders get their bands due to the main factor of in using the correct punctuations in the correct areas, right? Using commas, exclamatory marks, semicolons, and proper full stops is definitely going to increase your band. Let us see how this is done. When it first, let's just figure out how tone works. So there are formal tones and informal tones. So when it comes to formal tone, we have to make sure that you are greeting that particular person. So this is usually followed in emails. So you just greet them first in a very proper way with dear sir or ma'am, or I prefer last name. Last name, and before that you have to always mention Mr. or Miss. Never use Mrs. Never use Mrs. Always go for Miss. Even if the person is married or even if the person is single, just go for the word Miss. That's decent and universally accepted. Okay? Just M S and a dot. Or you can go for the title as well if you're writing to any government officials or somebody. The next important factor is how well you can sign off. So, when you're signing off, always go for a formal tone like sincerely or best regards. If it is an informal tone, you can always use lots of love, cheers, or best, or all these other informal sign offs. But when it comes to formal tone, you have to follow the strategy of using words that are more professional and sophisticated. You have to avoid the following things whenever you're doing your formal writing. Avoid contractions. Avoid words like can't, shouldn't. So instead of that, you have to write it as cannot, should not, right? So you have to be very careful about how this works. The next important factor is usage of colloquial language. This should be absolutely avoided. Keep it as professional and as polite and full of etiquette as possible, right? Avoid all these colloquial languages that might be looking like something informal, and avoid any sort of personal touch. I see a lot of students writing something like, uh, Dear Mr. Smith, I hope you're doing well. That is absolutely not needed in any sort of formal writing. You can directly address this particular task by saying, Dear Mr. Smith, I'm writing to inform you, or I'm writing to request, or I'm writing to whatever your objective is. So, this is usually used for professional settings as well as for strangers. For example, I might be writing it to my professor, or I might be writing it to my boss, or I might be writing it to a tour agent, or somebody I don't know, maybe a government official. So, it majorly comes under the criteria of people writing it to professionals as well as strangers. Now, what could be so usually complaint letters come under formal writing, be it writing to a friend or a neighbor or anything, right? Having a complaint letter usually comes under formal writing, right? So, as I said, formal writing, you have to write to your manager or any official, and here's a sample for this. So, I'm writing to formally request a meeting to discuss the upcoming project milestones and deadlines, right? So, I'm writing to formally request or whatever the word is. You have to just make sure that you're addressing all the main ideas in the first sentence. Okay, and now coming to the informal tone, it starts with a regular greeting of hi, hello, or dear, and only the first name is used. I cannot say dear Smith, okay, because Smith clearly is a last name. So I might say something like dear Indu, or dear Angel, or dear Selena, or something that's clearly a first name. Okay, try to choose words like that. And when you're signing off, you can always sign off with a very um, unprofessional or very informal way of lots of love, best, thanks, or cheers. Because you will be writing mostly to your parents or your relatives or your friends or people you're 100% comfortable with, right? You have to make sure that you add all these pointers in informal writing. So this is quite essential to get a band of 9 plus. The first and foremost thing is to add the contractions. So when I mean adding contractions, I do not mean words like can't or isn't or mustn't. So I don't want you to use words like that. I want you to use words that wouldn't make sense if there is no contractions. For example, if you consider the word what's up, if you write this word as what is up, it would be awkward and it would not sound so good. So, what's up can be written only with the contraction. So, you can definitely use this word to increase your band. Okay? What's up? Oh, what's up? What's more? Let's. All these words are definitely going to pump up your scores. Colloquial language. Do you want to hang out? So, using colloquial language is definitely appreciated. One more important thing is that you can use idiomatic phrases. What a lot of my students ask the doubt between idiomatic phrases and idioms. So, idioms are usually words that wouldn't make much sense if you do not know the meaning. For example, I might say something like kick the bucket, break a leg. So, kick the bucket means pass away, break a leg means to, it's a way of wishing somebody to do well in a stage, right? But it's not making any sense. These are idioms. When it comes to idiomatic phrases, they actually make sense. For example, once in a blue moon. This clearly means, at least it remotely means that it's something that happens in a very rare, it happens as a very rare event, right? So, this is the difference between idiomatic phrases as well as idioms. So, you can definitely use idiomatic phrases to increase your band. Now, exclamatory marks. In your writing, especially in informal writing, have at least 4 exclamatory marks. This is one of the most crucial things you need to note down to increase your band in informal email. But if it is a formal writing, do not use it or use it very, very rarely. Right? Only if it's a very exclamatory situation, you use it. Only if it's a very emotional situation, you use it. Apart from that, you do not use exclamatory marks. Right? Or try avoiding it altogether. You can just stick to the exclamatory mark in informal writing, and that is much needed. Adding a personal touch. So, in an informal writing, you have to start your email with a personal touch. Like, how are you doing? How is Mark doing? Mark might be a family member or your dog or anything, right? Something personal should be added in the introduction as well as conclusion, as well as it could be added in the body of the paragraph, um, body of the email if it is appropriate. For example, you have to include the names of the family members or any anything that's closely related to you, right? So that is much needed. And as I told you, it is usually written for friends as well as close acquaintances. So let us see an example of writing to a friend. Hopefully everything is going well for you and Max. So Max might be her husband or her brother or any family member or even a dog, right? But it just shows that there's a personal touch between you and this person, and that is going to increase your band, right? I'm incredibly excited to be reaching out today after such a long time. Again, there's going to be an exclamatory mark, which clearly shows that this is going to be an informal email. Now let us come back to the other important part of punctuations. So whenever you're giving your CELPIP exam, have a particular note, okay, in your formal as well as informal email, right? Or even in your surveys, there should be at least 6 to 7 commas. So when are commas usually used? They are used to create lists, right? That is one way to use commas, and another important way to use commas is to use them in compound sentences. Now, this is our key here. We have to add as many compound sentences as we can to use commas in a more effective and efficient way, right? So that if you increase the number of commas in your writing, automatically your bands are going to increase. If you increase the complex sentences in your writing, again your bands are going to increase. Band is going to increase, right? So make sure that you focus on compound sentences and learn where to place those commas in compound sentences. Personally, I would ask my students to avoid listing items. Let me tell you the reason for this. Whenever students list the items, it shows their inefficiency in expressing their grammar, right? So they're not efficient enough to express their viewpoints, or they have difficulty in developing the ideas. That is why they resort to listing things. So try to avoid listing items in your survey or your email. But if it fits the content, definitely you can go for it, right? Make sure that you are displaying uh, the fact that you know how to use commas and other punctuations in the most effective way. Now, coming to colons and semicolons, uh, colons and semicolons are usually used. Colons are used in places of listing. Semicolons are used usually to separate two closely related sentences, right? He was late, semicolon. Therefore, we had to reschedule the meeting. So this is closely related. That's why we can use a semicolon. Now let us come back to the punctuations of periods. So whenever you're using a period, right, or full stop, you have to make sure that you're using it only at the end of the sentence, and you have to start with capital letter after that. So caps should be there after that. And after the comma, there should not be a caps. It should be only in small letter. So all these factors play an important role in getting your band. Now, another important thing is that you make sure that you are having at least 7 to 8 commas, okay, and at least I would say 2 to 3 semicolons, right? And in informal writing, there should be 4 exclamatory marks, right? And probably one colon. You can try avoiding it, but you can definitely go for one colon. Okay. Now let us go on to the next important factor of sentence structure. So sentence structures, there are going to be simple sentences, compound sentences, as well as complex sentences. Apart from this, there is one important magic that you can create in sentence structure. I'll come back to that later on, right? Now, when it comes to simple sentence, it has only one independent clause, and it would be a very simple self-explanatory sentence that would have no sort of complications, right? So subject, verb, object, everything is going to be present with one independent clause, right? In your writing, especially in your emails, you can try adding just three simple sentences, not more than that. Okay, 3 or 4 is more than sufficient for simple sentences. Automatically, you will be forced to write simple sentences here and there, so you can definitely utilize that. Apart from this, try to be very careful in writing compound as well as complex sentences, right? When it comes to compound sentences, it is used by conjunctions, coordinating conjunctions such as and, but, so, or, nor, yet. So all these words are used to frame the sentences. Okay. And another important factor of using compound sentences is that automatically you will use commas. The number of commas are going, sorry, the number of commas are going to increase. So it is a combination of two independent clauses, and that is going to play a vital role. Now, complex sentences would be one independent clause uh, and two or more dependent clauses, right? Although it is raining, we decided to go for a walk. We decided to go for a walk is, um, uh, it is going to be one of the clauses in this. So it's going to be, although it is raining, is going to be a kind of thing that's going to show that there's a dependent clause as well as there's an independent clause. So compound complex sentences. When it comes to compound complex sentences, it should be a combination of two independent clauses or one or more dependent clauses. So compound complex sentences is a combination of these two. In your writing, there should be at least four compound sentences, and there should be at least seven complex sentences, and there should be at least three, two to three compound complex sentences. So if you follow this particular strategy, I can guarantee you that you can get more than band 10, right? 10 plus is guaranteed. Let me show you the magic of compound complex sentences. When you use compound complex sentences, there's going to be two connectors. While I was studying, my brother watched TV, and my sister worked on her project. So there are two commas and two connectors. So this is definitely going to, you know, increase your way of writing style. So this is going to increase the quality of what sentences you're like, increase the quality of sentences that you are writing. Okay. Now, another important factor is considering the vocabulary. So, when it comes to vocabulary, it's simply just not going for advanced vocabulary, sophisticated vocabulary. Apart from that, as I said, adjective adverbs combo is crucial. Okay. So, all the ly words, extremely helpful, remarkably efficient. This is definitely going to pump up your scores. Adjective phrases. So adjective phrases could be impressive performance or widely respected. So these adjective phrases are again going to increase your score. Let me tell you why this is an important factor. When it comes to adjectives and adverbs, these are usually descriptive. And whenever you're writing your task one as well as task two, the amount of ideas rather than the amount of ideas, the quality of ideas you are going to present is plays a very vital role, right? So the more descriptive it is, the higher your band. So make sure you are adding as many descriptive words as you can. Impressive performance, widely respected, and task related vocabulary. So what do I mean by task related vocabulary? So if I'm talking about a particular topic, so if the vocabularies I'm using below that or related to that particular topic are extremely linked to that particular topic, that is definitely going to increase my band as well. For example, if I'm talking about environment, sustainable development, ecological footprint, biodiversity and mitigation, or keywords, probably key vocabularies that are explicitly or exclusively used for environment. So that sort of appropriate vocabulary is definitely needed. Let us move on to the next part in vocabulary, that is advanced words. As I said, advanced and sophisticated words are definitely needed, but you have to know how and where to fit them. Okay? Instead of using good, you can use exceptional, and instead of using help, you can use the words assist or facilitate. So these are again sophisticated words rather than higher order words. They are more sophisticated, and they just elevate the way you're writing, right? And another important factor is phrasal verbs. So phrasal verbs, what are these phrasal verbs? Phrasal verbs are words that have uh, verbs that are made into phrase. Look into, okay, look after, cut down on, right? So all these phrasal verbs increase your band. Okay, if you need a really high band, you have to make sure that you include adjective adverbs, phrasal verbs, um, and other descriptive phrases, okay, and advanced vocabulary to increase the band to a band 10 or 11. Now, we have more than 500 plus words in our list that is specifically needed to increase your band in CELPIP. Okay, you can have an access to this content after you have enrolled, and you can enjoy the perks of this. So it's specifically curated to make a difference in your writing, right? Now let us see further vocabularies that are actually needed for CELPIP. When I mean task related vocabulary, it also means the tone. If it is a formal uh, email, right, or if it is a formal survey, we have to make sure that you are using words like furthermore, nonetheless, nevertheless, consequently. So all these vocabularies are enriched and polite in a very formal way. But the same should not, it's not like must not, it should not be used. If you use this, your band is going to reduce. If you use the word furthermore while writing to your parents or your friends, your band will reduce. There's a guarantee that your band will reduce. So instead of that, you have to go for informal connectors, right? Like also, plus, what's more. So, because of that, that's why. So, if you look at these connectors, you can see that there are contractions and they are more informal. On the other hand, whereas now an important thing that is needed here is whenever you're using the connectors, you have to be very careful on how well you're fitting them, right? It should not look awkward between the sentences, and you have to use the appropriate connector for this. So, if it's a cause and effect, um, you know, type of sentence, you cannot use any other, adding information. What's more in cause and effect, right? You have to use the appropriate one in there, wherever you're trying to fit that particular connector, right? Now, when you're requesting or when you are, putting up anything in a formal way, you would put it in a very polite and sophisticated, using sophisticated words like, I would appreciate if you could, right? If it is your friend, you can say, can you please let me do this? Or can you please lend me a pencil or pen, right? But if you are talking to your boss, you cannot do that. So while writing emails or surveys, be very careful that you are using formal tone where it's appropriate and informal only where it's appropriate. There should not be any overlap or clashing. And you should not use nevertheless, furthermore, nonetheless in any of the formal writings. I hope you have enjoyed this demo class. I'm really excited to see you all in the class that you guys might be joining, and I'm really excited for your next course as well. See you in your next class. Take care and all the best.